Hey, I got a question for all y'all's out there. Do the Oklahoma City Thunder and Minnesota Timberwolves give Rip City a little bit of hope? A little bit of hope. If we rewind and we go back in the Wayback Machine, if you go back to 2018-19 season, Minnesota Timberwolves were 36-46, which isn't terrible. But 1920, they were 19-45. 2021, they were 23-49. And now here they are with a 2-0 series lead and listen to this, a series win in the playoffs and a 2-0 series lead over the Denver Nuggets, the reigning champions of the NBA. And then you look back at what the Oklahoma City Thunder have been through. 2021, they were 22-50. 21-22, they were 24-58. Then 40-42 last year, and this year they spring up to 57-25 and the number one seed in the Western Conference. Should that give Portland fans any hope at all?
Sure, because as much as you look at these teams and you look at how things have done, and OKC stacking all of these assets and all of these things coming together for them, Minnesota's the worst run sports franchise in professional sports history in North America, and it's not particularly close. It was this year that they just finally passed 40% all-time winning percentage. They were 39% coming into the season. They were, to be blunt, ass, like on a level that is unfathomable throughout the history of their franchise. Drafting one guy changed it. Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they didn't draft, but they traded for a guy that they projected to be an all-star. They did not. Anybody that's telling you that Sam Presti is smarter than everybody else in the room, they thought he had the potential to be an all-star caliber player. Not an MVP, not one of the 5 best players in the league. They're just so much smart. No.
It was not what the Clippers wanted or needed at that time on their roster.
No, they did not want to give up SGA, which is like they figured he was going to be a very good player.
But it got you Paul George.
Yes.
It got you Paul George. And I think here's the thing with both of these franchises that I think, sure, you can look at turning around and how they were able to do it. One thing that they were able to do was they got rid of not just good players, great players.
Yeah.
If you go back to 2017 for the Minnesota Timberwolves, they traded Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, and Chris Dunn for Jimmy Butler to Chicago.
Which, little point on that one to give you an idea of how the Bulls saw that. They really loved Chris Dunn. He was number 5 pick in that draft.
Yikes. Providence?
And they saw him as the guy. That's who they wanted in that deal. LaVine was nice. Markkanen was nice.
Old Garpax.
Yeah. Dunn was the guy they thought that was their guy going forward.
Yikes.
So, and again, Markkanen was not, although he was a lottery pick, he was not seen as a guy, to kind of build with. And it took him 3 teams and years to kind of figure it out. And LaVine definitely got better, but he's also a guy, number 1, that's been injured and now not exactly a hot commodity around the league.
And I think one thing that both of these franchises have done, though, that was the kind of jumping off point for Minnesota, which they made, I don't know how many trades that they have made since that 7 years ago when it started with Markkanen, LaVine, and Dunn to get Jimmy Butler. They do have a new front office.
Sending out Wiggins.
Turnover too. But in the flurry of moves, they've acquired guys like Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, which they ended up sending to Utah, which got the Rudy Gobert. But they have made a flurry of changes in roster moves where you're sitting there and you're going, those 3 guys for one guy in Jimmy Butler has turned into essentially the roster that we're seeing right now. And they did tear it down. They got their guy in Ant Edwards, and Ant Edwards was far from a slam dunk his rookie year of being the guy that we all thought because of maturity issues, because of an incomplete game that everybody, as they're getting further and further away from the basket, remember, he is a guy that he's not perimeter oriented. He's not a deep shooter. He was a guy that's like, does he fit in the NBA right now? It turns out like he is the zig to everybody zagging towards perimeter-oriented basketball, and then you surround him with shooters with a competent front office. They have made so many moves to this roster, though, and it's like nobody in Minnesota got comfortable with anybody on that roster. And it kind of feels like that's where we're at with Portland in the past offseason we had here.
Yeah.
In the moves where Drew Holiday, gone.
Yeah.
Malcolm Brogdon,
I would
probably
gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
We're not even going to know him.
And that's the thing is, I don't think the Blazers are married to anything right now until they get the guy. And remember, Cat was supposed to be the guy, and it turned out he's not the guy.
Yeah. And it takes a few years of sucking to get to that point, though.
And they stuck to it with Rudy after last year, where it was a everybody killed him. I killed him. 5 draft picks for Rudy Gobert. Come on, man. 5 ones and Walker and Lowry. Like that's and Vanderbilt.
Not great, Bob.
Good God. I'm sorry, Lowry came over in the Mitchell deal. But you kind of wrap all of this together and you go, they stuck to it. They had a plan. They executed it, and they stayed with it. And it starts by getting the guy first. Everybody's like, well, I really like this guy. I really like this guy. None of it matters. Like, I hate to be that myopic about it. It does. In the NBA, you can't build a team without the guy.
Yeah.
As nice as OKC is and as deep as they are, they run because of Shea's rim pressure. Mm-hmm. That's what they're built on. His ability to get downhill, no matter what you put in front of him, and collapse a defense makes it so Chet Holmgren can attack from the weak side. So Jalen Williams can attack closeouts. So Lou Dort can sit in the corner and knock down threes. So Isaiah Joe can sit there and be one of the best three-point shooters in the entire NBA. They all have roles that they fit into that they sorted out over years, but it's because of the star. And you have to go get the young star.
And I think you look at Oklahoma City and what they were built on, the only thing that you can kind of look at and say tangentially you can point to Portland with is their hand was forced in the Paul George trade. Similar to Damian Lillard forcing his hand in the trade to Milwaukee. But what they've continually done, and this is more of the idea of what Portland is doing, is they didn't get the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, future star in that trade to Milwaukee. But what they did is Sam Presti has been hoarding draft picks. He has been acquiring assets slowly and surely. And this is where you go, all right, it's going to take several moves down the line. Mm-hmm. Portland may not be done dealing, and maybe that young star that they get back is for somebody that is on the roster right now. That's why I think, like, as we head into this offseason more and more in the playoffs, as they go deeper and deeper, you start hearing more and more teams who are saying things like, well, what Pat Riley said, he's got a fragile star. His other star needs to shut up.
Yeah.
And
they're not entertaining the discussions about his extension yet.
More and more teams are feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And you're going to have movement. Is Cleveland, if they get unceremoniously dumped by the Boston Celtics, are they going to be a team that starts making moves this offseason, even though they have a good young core, right? And Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is a name that you hear popping up all the time who could be on the move this offseason.
Which I'd be willing to bet he signs an extension and Cleveland stays.
Yeah, but I mean, we've heard everything from Orlando, Atlanta, Miami. Well, of course, Miami. Miami's like, everybody's going to come here. They're as insufferable as Laker fans are,
yes,
for God's sake.
Maybe
it's
worse.
Something about the sun that just bakes their brains. But what you're seeing is more and more teams in that unrest. Is Portland's roster going to be one that, I mean, Joe Cronin has always said, like, since he took over, we're open for business, right? Mm-hmm. And are we going to see, do you expect a flurry of moves like both of these teams that we're seeing with young rosters who are, for Minnesota, it's like 7 years into this.
Yeah.
For Oklahoma City, it's like 5 or 6 years into this. Are we going to see that sort of roster movement that really built what these two teams are now?
I think they are, and the people on the text line, there's folks saying, well, they also had their books in order. No, they didn't. And also the Blazers don't have any issues with their books.
Now their books are in order.
Well, that's the thing is, well, they've got, if they draft everybody and they keep everybody and they go into next year, they're in the first apron. Well, they're not drafting everybody. They're not keeping everybody. So why the hell are you freaking out? And stop listening to idiots that are trying to aggravate you over that stuff. If they get through the next 3 transaction cycles and they're at the apron, then you be worried about it. But this is there's nothing about where they are right now that you
Yeah.
should be worried about.
Yeah.
Because they're not going into the season with this roster.
Yeah.
We all know that. You can't.
And that's why
let's go this way real quick.
don't buy any Blazer jerseys is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, if you're somebody who's like, Jody Allen is cheap and she hates the team and she doesn't care, why on earth would she be in the first apron then? So if you're so like Blazer pilled that your brain is rotting and everything is bad and Jody's bad and Bert's bad and Joe's bad and Chauncey's bad, everything's bad and awful, why the hell would they spend money into the luxury tax and into the apron?
Great point, Bob.
I just like have your freaking just wash the little bit of stupidity down with a little bit of medicine. Pick your lane of what you're going to be angry about.
Yeah.
Either they're too cheap and they don't spend money, or they're going to spend all this money and be in the apron coming next season.
I think other things that need to be noted here: Minnesota, Oklahoma City have hit in the draft.
Mhm.
They have gotten number 1 overall picks.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay. Even in drafts that weren't perceived to be strong drafts. Okay. And they stuck through those messy years knowing we got to trust this for the long term. Even like, Presti has been in Oklahoma City forever.
Yeah. And he's a great GM and he's been willing to wheel and deal. He's also been willing to compromise kind of who he is to take on guys like Kevin Porter Jr. in transactions, which no other
red flag city.
Clubs aren't going to do that. And held on to Josh Giddey.
And Connolly goes from Denver to Minnesota
and builds a team to rival Denver.
And that guy had pedigree going into that job, but they hit on draft picks, and that's kind of where everything is built. And that comes to this Sunday, where the draft lottery is for Portland. It's pretty interesting though.